Hello everyone and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the latest legends from the new upcoming Lord of the Rings set, Tom Bombadil. With adding a slight twist on the fact that we're going to be making sure that every single card in this deck, apart from the commander, is going to be priced at under €5 on the lovely cardmarket.com. So 5 colours and budget. Just before I get started though, obviously if you do like any of the cards I'm going to be talking about here today or want to purchase the full deck list for yourself, then be sure to do so through our lovely affiliate link for the fabulous cardmarket.com, which is also where we're getting all the prices that we're using for this budget deck tech. Or if you're one of our lovely viewers from over the pond, then be sure to use our TCG player or Flipside gaming affiliate links in the description box below. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but really helps the channel out quite a lot. Now, onto our deck tech for, well, God himself. Not a sentence I ever thought I'd say, but here we are. Tom Bombadil is a 4/4 legendary god bard, gotta love that creature typing, for Wooburg. He reads, as long as there are 4 or more lore counters among sagas you control, Tom Bombadil has hexproof and indestructible, and whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. So Tom Bombadil is all about the sagas, which is rather fitting considering he wasted 80 pages of the epic saga I was reading. But I digress. His second ability is a way of getting more value from the sagas themselves by replacing them after they've finished their final chapter, which is great, but poses a problem since this triggers only once each turn. So if 3 of our sagas trigger all together in the same turn, we'd only get 1 new one. Not exactly great value. So we'll be going into sagas, ways to manipulate the counters on those sagas, and a splash of Enchantress for draw engine and general synergies. Starting off with the 1 mana slot, we've got Ramp to get us both to our commander and casting multiple sagas with Avacyn's Pilgrim, Elves of Deep Shadow, and Ignoble Hierarch all help fix our mana by tapping for a colour other than green. Crop Rotation also allows us to sack a land we don't need to find the colour of mana we do need, as we are a 5 colour deck after all. We also got one lovely piece of tech in Hex Parasite. This lovely little Phyrexian is great for killing off planeswalkers and ruining counter-based decks. But it can also be used to remove counters from our sagas, thus making them finish whenever we want them to set up Tommy B's triggers accordingly. Up to the 2-drop slot, we have a load more cheap ramp with Nature's Law and Farseek, grabbing us much needed fixing from the deck, remembering that the Law can grab a forest card, including jewels. Herald of the Pantheon makes our sagas cheaper and gains a tidy bit of life from them. Sanctum Weaver should be tapping for a good amount of mana to help cast more of our enchantments. Now, we have our first few sagas here in Zeus's many journeys that let us put more lands into play, and eventually makes a body that people might not be keen on blocking due to its untap ability. Song of Freyalise is one of my favourite sagas overall, as it makes all of our creatures, mostly tokens by the way, but all of them able to ramp us, and then lets us get in for one good alpha swing when it finishes its final chapter. And here we've also got off of us bits of Enchantress with Scythess, Harvest Hand for more life and card draw, Weaver of Harmony to copy our saga's triggered chapters, and Dance of the Manse to, in the late game, return any number of our sagas to the battlefield, which might even become a good win con with enough mana put into it. But we've also got to protect our enchantments, so Sterling Grove prevents them from being targeted with Shroud, Boros Charm can grant Indestructible, and Negate plus Arcane Denial help prevent any nasty farewells or austere commands from resolving. Up to the 3-drop slot, here is where we really get into our literature. Battle of Bretgard, History of Benelia, Jugan Defends the Temple, The Bears of Litajara, and the first Iroan games all make a dude on entry, with each saga then either making more dudes, buffing, or drawing us cards in their later chapters. Apart from our mono green one, that when finishes flips into the Remnant of the Rising Star. A potentially massive beatstick, especially considering how many of our sagas put counters on things. But we've also got removal on our Sagas. Elspeth's Nightmare destroys any small creatures, and then messes with our opponent's hand and graveyard. The Fall of Lord Condor destroys any big threat, and then turns itself into half a Solemn Simulacrum. Hitsugu consumes all, wrecks any Cheerio player's day, again removes graveyards, and then flips into a win con by just flat making a player lose the game by hitting them too hard. At this slot, we've also got the bulk of our Enchantress draw engine in Mesa Enchantress, Enchantress's Presence, Satyr Enchanter, and Citizen Champion. The only other card I want to mention here is the Gen Arcanum Weaver, as we might need to grab back a needed Saga, like Hitsugu consumes all, if an elf player is getting out of hand, so recursion is always nice. Moving up to the 4 drops, we've got our last honorary Enchantress in Eidolon of Blossoms for card draw, last bit of ramp in Sky Shroud Claim, which again can fetch dual type lands, and our only real tutor in the deck in Zur the Enchanter, who is able to grab any of our Sagas that I've mentioned thus far on attack. But we still have more Sagas for Tom the Bomb to read to us. Binding of the Old Gods is removal, ramp, and a good way of assuring difficult blockers on attack. Fearja's Retribution might only get value from its own Angel token, but a 4/4/4 flyer which goes into removal and then 8 damage in the air is still pretty strong. Inventive Iteration is a good bounce and draw saga, which then transforms into a super annoying flyer, which might be difficult to track, but does prevent a lot of things provided you play your cards right. The Akroan and Elder Dragon War are very angry cards, with the stealing of a creature and then board wipe potential in Akoras, and the Elder Dragon War shocking everything, rummaging, and then making a 4/4 flyer. And finally, the Trickster God's Heist is just hilarious to swap commanders, or just give the big threat to someone with a sack outlet to then get rid of it. I think this is going to be my favourite card in this entire deck if I'm being completely honest. Up to the 5 drops now, and the Sagas are getting a lot more violent. The Eldest Reborn, Elspeth Conquers Death, and the Battle of the Frost Giants all remove creatures, through sacrifice, exile, or just a near board wipe, with our former 2 turning into solid recursion later on, and the battle setting up our next draws and giving us additional cards for casting big spells. But if you want to make creatures instead, then Birth of the Imperium is 6 power over 3 bodies for 5 mana, then removal, with hopefully the last chapter drawing 6 cards, which we can dream. We can dream. At the 5 drop slot, we've also got a good bit of Constellation synergy in Doomwake Giant, a nifty little one-sided token wipe that can then turn into just murdering everything with more and more enchantments entering the battlefield, which works wonderfully with Tom's trigger to put enchantments into play directly. Up to the top spots, we've got our last few sagas in the Horus Heresy and the War in Heaven, which, according to Martin, Horus did nothing wrong. I have no idea what that means, but feel free to discuss in the comments below. But back to the enchantments, they let us steal the best non-legendary creatures for a bit, draw cards, and then get rid of up to 4 creatures. The War in Heaven is then card draw and reanimation of our key enchantresses. Waking the Trolls is specific land destruction to get rid of that bloody Urborg or Field of the Dead, then ramp us to hopefully make a ton of 4/4 green trolls. Our last saga is Cura Best's the Sea God. 7 mana for an 8/8 Hexproof is alright, and then tapping down one of our opponent's stuff is then rather harsh, then you just flat get to steal something. The only other non-land cards to mention are Sun Titan for recursion of our smaller sagas and Open the Vaults, an extremely dangerous card in the wrong matchup, but should we have a stacked graveyard and our opponents aren't playing artifacts, then this card can be 6 mana to just have a massive blowout turn of triggering so many newly entered sagas. Now, onto the lands. Now, I know a 5-color mana base on a budget might sound like trying to find a quiet, vegan, cyclist Peter representative, i.e. damn near impossible, but it can be done. Cascading Cataracts to fix our mana into Wooburg configuration to help cast our commander, Command Tower and Exotic Orchard for 5 coloured tapping, and a card I was genuinely surprised to find on the cheap, the World Tree. Literally Chromatic Lantern on the land. Now, we aren't running any gods, but even without that, being able to tap any lands for all colours is absolutely stellar on a land and on our budget. Another utility land is Khan's Bastion. As with Proliferate, we can trigger our Sagas in our opponent's turn and get a sneaky Tom the Bomb trigger at instant speed, which is not only great value, but lets us selectively get our Sagas to complete at different times. Fixing is also cheap with the Wedge lands, Seaside Citadel, Opulent Palace, Mystic Monastery, Frontier Bivouac and Jungle Shrine. I've included these primarily because green is the most important colour for us to grab our fixing cards with things like Farseek, so having green in them is rather important, and I also just personally really like Mystic Monastery. The last lands are a great cheap cycle of jewels. The Saga lands from Amonkhet are not only fetchable, have cycles, so should we not need them anymore we can get a good draw from them, but they're also really cheap right now. Was genuinely surprised when I found this out. So use that Nature's Law to go and grab a Scattered Groves and be winning with your fixing. Overall, Mr. B is a great Saga commander. Unlike some legends, he actually gives value for getting to the end of the Sagas and protecting them by replacing them, essentially giving you more card advantage. And considering most Sagas are really cheap, it makes a fantastically good and powerful budget commander, even if you'd have to sit through 20 pages of bloody song lyrics. And that'll be it for the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. What legends are you excited to see in the upcoming Lord of the Rings set? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. As always, this video and all Affinity for Commander content is made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. You guys are truly awesome. If you too would like to help support the channel and get access to exclusive EDH related rewards, then be sure to check out our Patreon link in the description box below. You can also support the channel in a few other quick and easy ways, liking this video, subscribing to the channel, commenting, and following us on your preferred social media platform. But that'll be it from me for now, guys. As always, I've been Alex, and I will see you next time.